Hey everyone, it is July 4th, and I want to wish you all a happy Independence Day. At least we are celebrating our national independence here in the United States. And we, as believers, can celebrate independence, freedom, and liberty every single day because of what Christ did for us. And in fact, it really is thematic. Our lesson is really thematic with the idea of freedom and liberty. You might be wondering when you look down, keep your hands off the strings, and you started looking here and you don't see anything about strings, and what is she talking about? Well, you guys know me. I pick some kind of random something. And my lesson title came from Charles Spurgeon. If it were well of all of us could say Selah under tempestuous trials, but alas, too often we speak in our haste. Lay our trembling hands bewildered among the strings and strike the lyre with a rude crash and mar the melody of our life song. Very wordy. He is wordy. If you struggle with that, which I did, and I still do, read it over and over again. But basically, Charles is saying, we need to take our hands off the string of our life song and allow God to do his work. When we think of, or at least I do, and most people, when we think of Psalm 46, we think of Psalm 46 verse 10, and that is, be still and know that I am God. I have a very, very dear friend who is also named Wendy, but she spells her name the cool way with an I at the end, and she's Wendy with the I, and I'm Wendy with the Y. But this is like her life verse. It's all over different things in her home. It's on social media things for her. It's probably on her keychain. It's marked up in her Bible, in every Bible, and it is her theme. It is her life's theme. And most of the time when we think of Psalm 46, we think of that. What we don't think of very often is that little word, at least out on the side here in my translation, that says interlude. Because we just don't address this. And I was thinking, as I read this, we need to look at that. We need to look at that. And it's more closely translated in the ESV and even I think the Holman Christian and some of the other King James maybe even or New American Standard is Selah. And Selah means basically, in a nutshell, pause and think about this. In other words, don't rush to the next statement of what I'm about to say. Sit with this one and marinate on it for a minute. Let this one sink in before you hurry along. And that's what Spurgeon was saying here. He's saying, we don't know what to do when we have these tempestuous trials that come in our life and we hurry to try to fix them. When what the psalmist is saying to us is, hey, you know what? Be still. Yes, be still and know. And I put that great definition for what that word means. And that means to sit back and do nothing. And basically, probably in the earliest King James Version translation, it might be, sitteth still and shutteth thy mouth. You know what I mean? In the sweetest way I can say it, sit down and shut up. That would probably be like The Message translation maybe would use shut up. I'm not sure. But anyways, that was always a cuss word in my house when I grew up. It was the S word. But basically, Selah is saying, pause and think about that for a minute. It's used 71 times in the books of the Bible, most often in the Psalms. And I put just the first 3 verses of Psalm 46 in the ESV so you could just have a different feel of them, but also see that word Selah in front of you. And I broke this down into sections about who God is. And then I added Spurgeon with it. So when we have the mountains are trembling and the water is roaring, what the psalmist does is he confidently says, He's my strength and my refuge. He's always there to help. Notice that he says is. Is a present tense word. It's not a past tense, even though he was back there. But when it's a was, it was an is then. He is always present. He is always strong. I can always run to him, and he's always going to help me. Confidently, he says that. And then he says, hey, you. Think about that for a minute. And then Spurgeon would say, and keep your hands off the strings. Sit on them if you have to. And then he goes on to say, he makes wars cease. And he's the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts is with us, is with me. Think about that for a minute. Oh, and don't put your hands on strings. And then he goes on and he says he makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. So you fill in this is the psalmist's experience. But you fill in some of the things that God has done in your life. And then pause and think about that for a minute. In the middle of all that's going on around you, then pause and think about that for a minute. Then, after we have paused and we have thought about it and we've kept our fingers and our little trembling hands off the strings, right? Don't we then have the freedom and the liberty to go, you know what? I'm just going to sit here because I know I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to fret. I don't have to settle a problem. Because God will do it. And if he needs me to do something, if he needs to activate the action item in me, he will. If he needs my participation, not my help, but if he needs my participation so that I can help bring glory to him and I can participate in his work in my life, then he'll tell me. But until then, I'm just going to sit back here and I'm just going to know. I'm just going to sit it down and shut it up. Because God's got it all. He's my refuge. He's my strength. He's my ever-present help in times of trouble. He's the Lord of hosts and he's with me. He can make the wars cease. He can burn chariots up that are after me. Anybody that's after me, he can just bring the bow, the heavenly bow, and he can break it and he can shatter anything. Yeah, he's got it. And y'all know, there's such freedom in that. There's such freedom in not having to be the problem solver and the fixer. And we feel like we do. We feel like he needs us and he really doesn't. He wants us. And often he invites us to help and to participate and to join the journey. But sometimes He really just wants to sit down and show us what He's got. And I love that because I can just sit back and kind of go, yeah, do your thing. That's freedom. That is worth celebrating today. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Words. Read through the Word and the words, I guess, too. Also, have a good one.